Welcome to another exciting lesson. Last class, we looked at cleaning agents for cooking tools and equipment. Before we start, let's know some facts about our topics for today. Facts about food preservation. Do you know that food preservation is dated as far back as human? Some method has been around as long as humans have, and other methods are relatively new. Imagine you live hundreds of years ago when there were no shopping stores and there were no fridge or freezer to save food. Would you like to be stuck hunting every day to avoid eating spoiled food? Probably not. Well, neither did ancient people, so they began using methods to preserve their food. Have you ever seen mold growing on old bread, fruits, or cheese? The main cause of food spoilage is the growth of bacteria or mold. As such, some of the oldest food preservation techniques were developed with the intent of preventing or slowing the growth of bacteria and mold. Let's get more knowledge from our lesson. Our topic is simple food preservation and storage. We will examine this question during the course of our learning. Why do we preserve food? What are the methods of food preservation? What are the food storage methods? What is the difference between storage and preserving of food? Let's start with the meaning of food preservation. Food preservation is the process of treating food to prevent decay or decomposition. Properly preserved foods do not spoil or go bad easily. When you take care of your food, when you're able to use the food preservation properly, then the food will not be bad. Food preservation usually involves preventing the growth of bacteria, fungi such as yeast or other microorganisms into food. Imagine leaving your food on the table till the next day. What will be the first thing to observe? One, a bad smell will be coming out from the food, and also you will notice some bacteria growing on it. That is why it is good to preserve food. Know that food preservation is the process of treating and handling food to stop or slow down food bacteria. Why do we preserve food? Foods are preserved for the following reason. We have some food that are seasonal. So during that period, you can have them, you can buy them in large quantities because those seasonal food are plenty at that time. So when they are out of season, you will still have the food with you, like yam. Then food that are produced in abundance. That is, we have some farming community that they produce food in large quantity and they need to preserve them so that they can sell them in the cities or town during scarcity. Food preservation also helps to prevent food storage, as we know that food preservation has to do with treatment of food. So being able to keep food from being bad or spoiled, it can help to avoid food wastage. Then it also helps to save money by buying food in bulk and seasonal. That is when you buy food items in a large quantity during season. And finally, conveniences. That is, it helps to keep food in best condition when it's ready to serve. What are the methods of food preservation? Let's look at some common methods of food preservation. We start with smoking. Smoking is a traditional method of food preservation that is adding a unique flavor to the food. If you like meat or fish, by the time you get a smoked meat, there is a unique flavor that always come out from it. And also, smoking It helps to remove moisture from food by preventing bacteria and fungi growth that will destroy the food. And smoking is done when the food is exposed to fire and smoked. Another method of food preservation is drying. Drying is the oldest and the simplest ways to preserve food, dated back as 12,000 BC. It removes water from food, making it difficult for any bacteria or mold to grow. Drying is good for food like meat, fish, fruits, and vegetable, and this can be done under the sun. Salting. Salting is a method of preserving food that was more common before the modern refrigeration. Salting preserves food by drawing water out of the food, preventing bacteria growing and sporage the food. The food is surrounded in salt and left in a cool, dry place. That is, when you want to dry, you can see from our picture there, you just add salt to the food that you want to preserve, like that fish and meat. You just add some quantity of salt, you add it to the food. The food example, we have you can use fish, you can use meat, you can use pork, and so on. Another method of food preservation is canning. Canning is the process of applying it to food that is sealed in a jar. You can see from our picture there. In order to destroy any microorganism that cause food to spoil. Proper canning techniques stop this storage by eating of food for a specific period of time and killing all the microorganisms. Example of food that can can, we have tin tomato, tin mix, sardine, and so on there. Refrigeration. Refrigeration is one of the most popular forms of food preservation used today. The idea is to slow bacteria action to a crawl so that it takes food much longer to spoil. Food refrigeration is a process that makes the germ that spoiled food become inactive due to the refrigerator. All these methods of food preservation are used in such a way to stop or greatly slow down spoilage or prevent foodborne illness while maintaining nutritional value, texture, and flavor. Now let's look at food storage. What do we mean by food storage? Food storage is a process in which both cook and raw material are stored in appropriate condition for future use without any entrance or multiplication of microorganisms, that you're able to keep them in a proper place so no microorganism will be able to enter them. Food storage also means putting away food for future use. It is better to apply preservative measures to food before they are stored, as this can make them to last longer. Storage of food also help to make food last longer. It saves food some time, energy, and money. Method of storing foods. Food storage comes as a result of food being stored to keep it from spoiling and pests from destroying or eating them. This makes foodstuff to be available at home at any time, and it helps to save money when you buy food in bulk when in season. The first method we're looking at is bags. Bags are used to store food like dry food like corn, rice, beans, garri, pepper. All these can be stored in bag, especially when they are plenty. Things with tight fitted cover like the one in picture can also be used to store dry food or you can also use for liquid food like vegetable oil or red oil. Then bottles. Bottles are good for groundnuts, melons, ogbono, crayfish, pepper, and so on. Another methods of food storage, we have covered buckets. Covered buckets with a tight fitted cover can be used to store dry food like beans, rice, garri, and so on. Freezer. Freezer also are used to store uncooked food such as meat and fish which can get spoiled easily. All you need to do is to make sure that you wrap them very well and you keep them in the freezer. And always maintain a rotational system. That is, you use the item that is the oldest first. Meat safe. Meat safe are also used for dry meat or fish. You keep your cooked meat separate from raw meat, and it is good for you to have your own food storage in your house to make sure that your food are kept well and that you can still eat them for a longer period after you have bought them, because you will not like to go to the store every time you know that you don't have food store in your kitchen. Thanks for watching. Summary for today's lesson include food preservation, that we say it has to do with the treatment of food so as to keep it from going bad or spoil, and which can lead to wastage. We talked about reason for preserving food, that it makes food to be available when it is out of season. It helps to keep food in best condition. We look at the common method of food preservation. We talk about smoking, we talk about salting, we talk about drying, we talk about canning and refrigeration. Also, we look at food storage. That food storage means putting away food for future use, and it is better to apply preservative measures to food before they are stored, so to make them to last longer. We look at the method of storing food. We talked about bag, tins, bottles, meat safe, and freezer. Know that food preservation is inseparable from where the food is stored. The storage of food is done in a suitable environment, that is dry, cool place. Preserve and treat food as if you will your body. Do your assignments, eat well, and be safe.